Right, what's happening?
I have with me today Paul Browne is a BJJ brown belt.
Yeah.
Team Rhino.
Yeah.
MMA commentator extraordinaire.
Apparently so, yeah. Fell into that gig this year.
You own your personal trainer, own your own business, and
yeah, I have a lot of plates spinning, a lot of shit going around, but sure, look, I like being busy and I don't like being stuck in one place. I don't know how people stay in an office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, 40, 50 years, I don't know. Yeah. I like just having different things on different days and being around different environments and different people and stuff, and constantly sort of learning. So that suits me to have it that way, you know.
And I've only kind of start introducing myself to you in the past, but you're always kind of around in the jiu-jitsu scene, and I always seen you reffing and stuff. So you've been there. Like, I always like when I see commentators and refs and stuff that they're in the middle and they know most of the blokes from when they're like most of the blokes you're commentating on, you know them from, you've probably reffed their jiu-jitsu matches and tournaments, and the majority of MMA guys in Ireland come from a grappling background. 80-90% of them do.
Most of them come from that scene,
you know?
And it's been great, like, because I just got into the commentary thing and the MC and things, so I do the two of those, sort of a lot of them on the same show. Like, I'll do the two jobs on the one show, which is exhausting. But I just got into it this year when Noel O'Keefe was doing the job, and he sort of announced he was taking a step back from it.
Yeah.
And I'm, of course, the last 5 years I've been working on the same shows as an official, a ref and a judge. So, like, I'm already part of that little, we call it the cage side family.
Yes.
Like, at all the different promotions, it'll be the same cuts teams, medics, you know, all the gang, the commentary and whatnot, and the officials. So it was an easy sort of transition. Right? I just texted a couple of the promoters and said, look, I'll do that. Yeah. They're like, oh, that saves us having to go and look for someone else.
Yes.
So it was great, because then you just know everyone you're working with already, so you're already in a comfortable environment. And with this newer job, what I'm able to do is I'm able to just be more relaxed. And like when you guys turn up at a show, I'm able to fucking shake your hand and give you a hug and say hello, whereas when you're an official, you can't really be seen to be doing that with fighters and coaches, because then there can't be a picture of me and Paddy Houlihan on my Instagram. I'm judging Paddy Houlihan's fighter, or I'm refereeing Paddy Houlihan's fighter against someone else, and then they're pissed off with a decision that didn't go their way, and they can point back at that. Whereas now, it doesn't matter a fuck. Do you know what I mean? I'm just there to paint the picture to the people watching at home on the live stream. 90% of them are probably people that don't really watch MMA. They've tuned in, they've bought the pay-per-view because their friend or their cousin or their brother is fighting. So it's my job there is to just tell the story of what's going on in the fight. These are who these two fighters are. This is what he's good at. This is what she's great at, and this is what she's hoping to do in the rest of her career. This is where he wants to go. And it just feels like a natural. I've fallen into it this year, and it sort of escalated. I'm on all bar one of the promotions in the country now.
Savage. By
the end of the year, so like it's great fun. It's just great crack.
You mentioned a few names there, like Noel O'Keefe, Andrew. We didn't mention Andrew McGatton's name, but Andrew McGatton does it as well. We are fucking blessed in Ireland with the talent of them guys, including yourself.
Phil Campbell.
Phil Campbell is savage. He's on Brave as well.
International standard commentator, like the first
we're
cage.
Blessed.
Yeah, the first Cage Legacy. I sat down to work with Phil, and of course I'd know the guys because they'd be on the shows when I was judging. But we always got on great, you know. So I sit down beside him and I have my notes put together. This is me. I think it was like the second show ever I commentated on. So I have notes on every fighter, because you can't just rock up. People think you just sit there and describe the action. You need to know who everyone is in the cage, and a little bit about them, how many fights they've had, who they've fought, who they've beaten, who they've lost to. You have to know this. But then I sat down and I had my notes, and I'm well prepared here. And I looked across at Phil's notes, and my God, he just... Every single bit of information you could know about a fighter is there. But of course, he's worked many shows with each of these fighters. So with each show, you're collecting more info, you know, more records on them. So it was great to see, and he's just so slick. You know, he's confident in front of the camera, and I can just pass a question over to him, and he'll just rattle off on that, and then he'll do the same to me. You know, so we work really well together. And of course, McGahan, I know McGahan since we were like white belts and blue belts, and we've competed against each other over the years. We get on great, so we have great old crack. We have a different style there on the shows. I work with him because we just have a laugh with it, you know. So it's great fun. It's just great crack, you know.
It is, and you can see that like who turns up to ref jiu-jitsu matches, like, if they're not passionate about it, because it's the most thankless fucking job. You've guys giving you grief who should know better. you've parents giving you grief who don't know anything. You know what I mean? And I've seen it all, and I'm just like, stop. If a ref makes a bad decision, so fucking what? They're 12.
Yeah.
Relax.
Like,
you know
I'm not one to comment either, because I've often gone off the lid at refs when I've been competing and things have gone against me. So it happens because passions are flying, you know. And that when you're reffing, you basically have to just put yourself in a neutral position. You don't know him or him. It's fighter A versus fighter B. Same when you're judging, because and people always accuse you. You get accused of bias if you give a decision against someone you've trained with or something, and then sometimes even like you'll give it against someone you've trained with, and they'll still go off the lid at you. Like, I'm not looking at who's in the cage. I'm literally thinking red corner, blue corner, and I'm just trying to be completely impartial and block out everything else. And the problem is that most people don't really know the scoring criteria. They don't understand the rules, even though they compete in the sport. So that leads to people going off the lid. So you don't take it personally, you know, because if you're going to take things personally, they're in the wrong job doing that.
And you spoke about most people don't know the rules. I have a bias, and I was messaging back and forth about Matthew Elliott, that fight with Matthew Elliott. I have a wrestling bias. So I'm like looking at wrestling going, I got the takedown and he got to this. And I messaged you. I looked at that fight and I said, Matthew Elliott won that fight. And then I kind of, when a few people explained to me about what's going on and about just sitting there and not trying to pass guard, not doing damage, and the person is busy working from the bottom, I kind of go, right. You know what I mean?
It does make the fight closer. Like a lot of people, even with that understanding of the criteria, still think he won the fight. And I wouldn't say they're wrong. What I'd say
it
is
was very
that
razor
fight could
close.
go either way.
It was razor close.
I did the little watch along video and stuff, and my inbox was hopping for about a week after it. People sending me fights going, I lost this fight, will you watch that and tell me what you think of it? You know, so because a lot of fighters and coaches just, they don't have a breeze of how fights are actually scored, and it's like wrestling does score in the criteria, but it scores once you hit the floor. If you take someone down, the takedown scores if you then mount an attack from that takedown. So if you take someone down and punch the face off them, your wrestling is after winning you that round. Or if you take someone down and almost submit them, okay, well then you've scored heavily. But if you just take someone down and sit in their guard and play defensive,
and they're hitting you from guard,
it doesn't take much for them to knock the round back off you. Just if they hit you a few elbows, it's like the judges then have a decision to make. Jesus, people aren't going to like it. Because I remember watching that fight in the background. I was playing with me kids and I was kind of half watching it, and I was thinking, I don't think this fight is as, I hear Reds around them on commentary, you know, he clearly won, blah blah, or they were kind of insinuating me that this was a comfortable victory, and I was thinking in my head, I might have to watch this one back, because I think this one is going to, it's very possible that they might give this the other way. And then they did. I was like, oh, this shit's going to hit the fan, because that happens a lot on social media when most people see that and they don't understand it. So it's I'm glad I don't have to do judging anymore. That's all I'll say, because you can't win. You know what I mean? It's much more fun having the microphone there and getting in the cage and announcing the fighters and having all that atmosphere, and then getting to sit down and just watch the action real closely and just describe it. It's so much more of a relaxed job, you know.
No, it's now there's a good clatter of fights coming up with Cage Legacy in September. Cage Legacy again 2nd of December. They're putting on another show.
There's 2 next week. There's Premier FC is on next week in Kilkenny. The week after, Virtus up in Oma at the top of the island. So I'm doing both of those. Then I've got Cage Legacy, another Cage Legacy. Your is back in November in Newry.
Savage.
So like, I think I was counting up yesterday, between now and Halloween I've got 10 events I'm either MCing on or commentating on, or both, and I think 13 or 14 before the year is out, you know. So it's a busy little schedule ahead, because there hasn't been anything on over the last few weeks. So it's good to see it all lining back up. It's good to see loads of opportunities back for the fighters, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Because there was a long time of nothing going on.
There's fighters now, like you mentioned, your is in November, and then Deco's in Cage Legacy. Like, they're that spoiled for choice that they're not going to do your, and they'll say, I'll do Cage Legacy, or vice versa, which is a great option for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's shows on like one week to the next, like next week and the week after. Like I said, there's Just shows that's great for fighters because you can pick and choose when you can compete, rather than having to go 6 months trying screaming for a fight. Like that's how it was a while back.
Yeah, no, 100%. And someone pulls out on you and you're gone for another couple of months. You know,
frustrating life.
Yeah,
you know?
No, it's great to see. But getting back to yourself, how did you get into jiu-jitsu? How did you start? Where did you come across it?
So, what am I now? I'm about to hit 44 next month, so I would have been like 31, 32. I was playing GA, and I had wrapped that up because I was just pissed off playing GA because I was never much use of it. But that was sort of the thing you did, you know. You'd go and train a couple of times a week, and you'd play a game at the weekend, and you're out with your GA team, and it was just that alcohol-fueled environment, and just got bored of it. And then I was like, right, I'll knock that on the head. I'm sick and tired of it now. So there was a year or two where I was doing nothing else, like lifting weights and you know, going out at the weekend partying. But I wanted to do something different, you know. Yeah. And I was always into watching combat sports. And I remember I took on an MMA fighter as a strength and conditioning client, actually. Okay. And he had his own small club out in Ashbourne, where you're from. Okay. And I sort of ended up sort of training a little bit there. Okay. And they were sort of affiliated with Team Rhino, so I sort of I slid from one club to the other, and into Team Rhino, and it just became hooked. Okay. It was initially I actually had some kickboxing fights before. Right. I was really doing jiu-jitsu. I did some kickboxing fights first. Preferred the jiu-jitsu. Got the ribs cracked a couple of times fighting as well. It wasn't much fun in that. Yeah. Got the bell rang a couple of times, and I was like, this grappling stuff looks a little more brain friendly. So I was playing with that, and then I started playing around with MMA. So I was doing a bit of jiu-jitsu and mostly MMA there for a couple of years. I broke that elbow. You can see the hole in my elbow there. Okay, yeah. Dislocated that in training for an MMA fight. Good long time ago now. And so I couldn't even extend that arm fully for like 2 years. So punching a bag and training MMA wasn't an option. But I could still do jiu-jitsu even when the arm was like weak as shit, and I was still building it back together. And I was even able to compete and win jiu-jitsu tournaments with sort of one fully functioning arm. And what it forced me to do was I had adequate jiu-jitsu at the time, but not enough. I was a blue belt, not enough to win a competition or a tournament. Yes. Yeah. You know, I could get by, and it was a tough opponent, but I didn't have enough technically about me to go and win blue belt tournaments. And when that arm was injured and I couldn't really spar hard or train hard, it forced me to just work a lot more learning, drilling, technical side of the game. And then I started just winning I got to a stage where I was winning nearly every tournament I was going into. Yeah. And then I got a purple belt. And then after a little while I started winning more and more tournaments there, and then it was a brown belt, and look, here we are. Savage. So that's it's been a long old road, but yeah, great old spot, because it changes, the sport changes your whole circle of friends, your whole social circle, your whole outlook on life, you know, like the friends I've met through Team Rhino and the likes yourself, like out there through the extended circle of the jiu-jitsu scene. Just friends you'll have for the rest of your life, do you know, that sort of way. So it's who knows. And look, you were saying earlier that you don't really drink that much. I don't drink much now either. Like my life doesn't revolve around going playing GA and standing around watching a football match in a pub at the weekend. It's been a long time since I've been interested in doing things like that. I have much more exciting things going on at the weekends, like shows to go to, a bit of work to do at the side of the cage, and training, you know, when you get some free time, play with the kids. So it's much more fulfilling, isn't it? Like,
no, come here, I'm the same. Like I love looking at grappling, I look at wrestling, I look at MMA. I just love looking at it, and like what you said there, it does change your outlook on life. It's like all this other white noise isn't really that important. What I thought was important isn't really important, you know what I mean? But it's not that jiu-jitsu is the be all and end all. I'm a fucking outfit that does it, but I have great fun doing it.
It's a great hobby. Like,
I love it. You know what I mean?
For you and me, like, we're not training twice a day, 6 days a week, like the athletes are, but we just go down and do it when the body allows us to do it, and just down there for the crack. Have the fun. And that's one thing I miss most during those lockdowns, was just not having that outlet, you know, and that just you can switch off. Like there last night I went training, I was fucking exhausted yesterday, 2 heavy days, had barely trained the last couple of weeks because I was sick a couple of weeks ago. 2 knees are giving me trouble, carrying a few knocks, and I was driving down to jiu-jitsu last night going, I don't think I'll even train tonight, I'll just go down and see how everyone is, and I brought the bag anyway. Great fucking workout last night. Fucking load of black belts and brown belts on the mat. We all beat the bollocks out of each other. And I slept in this morning because I was so exhausted. But you feel a million times better then in yourself the day after that. You know what I mean? It's it's just a great way of just forgetting about all your other problems momentarily.
Yeah, no, it's there's nothing brings you to back down to reality like fighting off a choke from some bleeding animal.
Yeah.
Keep you in the moment.
Yeah,
keep you living.
I was saying to one of my friends last night, she's a white belt, and I was saying to her after training, and I was saying that, you know, I was coming in the door thinking I was just going to take it easy, but then I rolled with like Jason O'Connor, Howard Mannion, Ray Orr, 3 black belts that we've been training with since day one. Collie Reed's a brown belt, so we're all training together a long time. But there's no taking it easy if you're rolling with any of those. You kind of have to get that out of your head pretty quick, or they're just going to rip your head off. So it's like, right, I've got to go into 5th gear here and start scrapping with these lads. So all of those back to back in the heat, and then you kind of forget about just taking it easy and having a relaxed night on the match. You just let's go at it, fuck it, bump hands and let's go. You know.
No, it's good fun, and it's kind of like people. It is a bit of a lifestyle, and it's like I was always involved in other sports where kind of high level. You were either doing them or you weren't. You know what I mean? You were in
triathlons and stuff. You were there, was it, or
biking and I did a bit of running as well at a decent level. But it's either you're in the A group or you're a fucking wanker.
Yeah.
Whereas I can be a wanker in jiu-jitsu and just float around, do a few rounds, sit out one, and it's like a lifestyle rather than, no, you have to be in this group. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like that. Just rock up to an open mat or up to a jiu-jitsu class back in Rhino, and just you can down and just catch up with people, even if you don't feel like you're going to be able to do 8 or 10 rounds. You can do 2 rounds and sit one out and have a chat, and then hop back in and just go with the flow a little bit some days, you know.
And I always say, like, even when Max was injured, or when the lads are carrying a knock, or always go down. Like, go down and not necessarily train, but you're showing your teammates that, like, I'm here, I can train, and we will be swapping positions, because the nature of the sport is your mate is going to be injured and he's going to be on the side of the mat and you're going to be training, so it keeps the old team and camaraderie going, you know what I mean? Definitely,
yeah. And you can still learn a lot even when you're on the side of the mat. Like, I've gone down there injured and just sit there, have a chat, and then just watch a couple of the really good guys, just watch how they're moving, what they're doing in certain situations. And like what I do now is on a Tuesday night I go down to jiu-jitsu, but I'm kind of home early on a Tuesday, so rather than sitting at home watching TV killing time before going training, I'll go down a little bit early and I'll watch Bill McCann teaching the wrestling class.
Yes.
And I'll just watch, you know, I could do it, but then I'd have to skip the jiu-jitsu class after, because I don't have like 3 hours of mat time in the body anymore. I used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But now I just go down a little bit early, watch what they're doing, watch some of the drills they're doing, and Bill will be over and he'll be showing me what the techniques are and whatnot. And it helps me then when I'm commentating, you know, improving me knowledge base. Like I threw on the gloves and did some MMA training recently for the first time in a few years, and great fun, you know, just to move around with the guys and just to get an understanding of how these people move, and even if you're not going to be actually throwing yourself in the deep end, like you're saying, when you're injured, you can still just see things from the sidelines. You can improve that way too, you know.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then the team that you're with at the moment are producing a lot of talent at the moment. A lot of young talent coming through from, like, your James Sheehan's, your Graham Sheehan's, you know, there's tons of them.
Killers, yeah. There's those things, they go in cycles and waves, don't they? Like I was watching that interview that Paddy Houlihan did with Grip Media. It popped up on his social media last night, and he was talking about, you know, it just seemed to, at the time when they were all coming up through the UFC, like Siri and Paddy and Carl Pendred and all, there was people from all the different kind of areas of Dublin all kind of hit their prime around the same time, and there was a whole load of them. And what you usually see good fighters coming through in one gym for a little while. There's a good bunch there on the rise at the same time, and right now Team Rhino seems to have quite a good bit of hot potential coming through. Like Nadine Abbott making her pro debut next month. Holy fuck,
savage.
I just saw she got a new opponent as well, because her opponent was pulled out, but then they straight away they got her a new one, so that's going to be great to see. She's an absolute killer. Like I could see it in her from day one when she was whatever, I don't know what age they were when they started, herself and her brother, maybe 15, 16. I remember going down to, I was reffing at the, I think it was the DCU sub only tournament, and she was fighting in a bracket which was like, they had a sort of a beginner bracket where you had to be trained in less than 6 months. So, and it was huge, you know, white belts, girls, adults, or whatever. So she was in there. She was only 16 or whatever, but she was in there. and there was a girl on the other side of the bracket. There was a bit of sandbagging going on. I think she had won the same division the year before, even though it was like 6 months or less training. So she was on one side of the bracket, injuring fucking opponents left, right, and centre, milling everyone. And Nadine was submitting everyone on her side of the bracket. And they met in the semi-finals, and all the parents of the young girls competing were giving out fuck about this one. You know, this she was Eastern European, I think, but she was murdering everyone. They're all giving out shit because their kids were going out there with fucking sore arms and sore legs.
I think I know who you're talking about. She doesn't compete anymore.
It was bad. It was one of them. It was like, this is sketchy. But Nadine came up against her in the semi-final, and I think it went the distance. And I took time off the mat to corner her through the whole division because she was like, Dean was killing everyone, but at the same time she was only a beginner, like. So she was fighting her one. It went the distance, no winner. They went to EBI overtime, and it went back and forth for about 10 minutes. And I think eventually her one got an armbar on Nadine and hurt her, like fucking hyperextended her arm. Game over. So Nadine comes off crying, and then Oisin, the running competition, comes over to me and goes, "Listen, there's a third place playoff for Nadine if she wants it. Is she okay to do it?" And I says, "Right, give me a minute." So I was talking to her, and she was bawling. She was holding her arm. She shouldn't be allowed to compete, that's not fair. And I said, right, sure. Here's your options. You can go out there and fight for your bronze medal, or we can just knock it on the head and go home. And she just went, wiped the tears off and shook it off, and went out there with one arm and won inside 10 seconds with a flying armbar. So like, I seen that and I was like, alright, like 99% of us would have just gone, fuck that, I'm injured, I'm going home. Yeah, she can have the medal. But she just fucking, she just bit down on it and went. So when I seen that, I was like, right, this kid has the potential now to actually be something. She has that little bit of killer instinct that a lot of them don't have. They want to do it, and they'll do the sport, and they'll get to a certain level. You see it even in MMA. And then when it gets to the point where you have to be Rhys McKee against Justin Burlington, and it's just not in you. But there's certain people like Rhys McKee that has it.
No.
Like, shit's going wrong. I can get out of here. There's a way out. But no, fuck the way out. Let's keep going forward, and we're not giving up. We're just going to keep going. So she has that. And
her brother has it too. I've seen him. Like, Max and him used to be in the same weight class and bracket. But you can see it. Like, there's certain ones that they're just... in all the different clubs, all the lads I know, and I knew blokes like this in different sports, and they just fucking get on and they train, and and then put a few lights on them, put them in that moment,
they just
and
have
they're
that
just like
competitive gene,
that next step up. Whereas most people, myself included, go, I need new shorts.
I was looking at that fucking that Kimura that Gary Rooney had him in, and I was commentating cage side, and I sort of lost the ability.
And that's
to speak.
That's why I'm saying that it's like, no, it's this young is a different gravy. Even though like he lost, but he will have learned so much from that, and like you can't teach that. There's no place you can go and go, this is how we teach your heart. You either have it or you don't, and they have it in fucking spade loads, you know. And Gary Rooney has it in spade loads, and there's I can think in Irish MMA at the moment, down this part of the country, I can think of 15 young fellas and girls like that that just have that. Do you know what I mean?
There's a special breed coming through now. That next generation, like James Sheehan is a bit ahead of them now. He's making big waves in Cage Warriors. And I can see
Graham is fucking top class as well. His younger brother. He's a fucking animal.
He was always we always had the running joke in there, like a couple of years ago when he was like the skinny younger brother, the teenager. Like he's better than the other two Sheens put together. Like, but now he's grown into a fucking man. And he's out there slaughtering people in the cage himself, and like he'll be going pro. He'll be one to watch, you know. And they're just. Those lads put the work in non-stop, you know, and they're very smart about how they train, and like it's great to see James getting his dues now, getting the light shone on him a little bit, because he had a couple of really good finishes there in his last couple of fights. And the fight he had before that, I think it was Odell Brown, or I might be getting that name wrong, or something Brown, but I think he won by a split decision. And since that, your man Brown has absolutely butchered 2 or 3 opponents back to back in Cage Warriors. So now I'm looking back at that going, holy shit, that was an amazing victory. And he had that great fight with Ian Gary coming through. So because his results were a bit mixed at the start, people weren't really seeing him as, right, this guy could be a world champion. But now people are looking at him like, oh well, okay, he's one to
and
watch
even like the Ian Gary, in injury, he was unlucky. That's part and parcel. You have to deal with
game,
that.
yeah.
But it's like, I worked with James and I remember them losses, you know what I mean? And most people, like what we just said about the Abbotts and Gary Rooney and all these people, most people just would have rolled up the tent, you know what I mean, with them like bad losses against, they were high level opponents that he fought his first few losses.
Yeah, you look at them now compared to like
they're fucking animals, but most blokes would have went, fuck this. But now, and then back from another bad injury again, and he kept plugging away. And like I used to work with James on the daily, and his diet and what he eats, and he just thinks, lives, everything is about MMA. The way he lives his life now, which is it's great to see, because there's so many other people that just live their life a different way. It's the pub and it's X, Y, and Z. So when you're around people like that, it's infectious. I like being around people like that, you know, and talking to them and having chats with them, you know. But James he's different level as well, you know.
Yeah, there's great potential there for a Cage Warriors world title. And sure, look, if you do get that far and you win that Cage Warriors belt, we've all seen what can happen after that. More often than not, these guys end up in the UFC. So you know, there's a quite a high ceiling there for him and for his brother, you know. Lots of fighters coming through in the Irish scene like that now, and it's really exciting, you know. It's nice to see, like, PFL are coming over, and saw Nathan Kelly and Will Fleury had great debuts with them at the weekend. Nathan
Kelly, that was he's with Paul Fogarty and One Hit Fight Management. That was a fucking, like, a debut of, like, who does that?
And by all accounts, his opponent now was no joke either. Like, he had a decent record, but he just basically ran through him,
lit him up.
Strangled him, like. And like that, the PFL coming over now into Europe, and they're branching out, and they're making big plans for lots of, like, European belts and all that, and they pay quite well. Like, Miles is with them now. That's great for the fighters over here,
and,
you know.
And do you know what I liked? I was keeping an eye on Miles's fights as well. We've been watching them. I like promotions that, what's Miles fought 3 times there? Two times in how many months?
2 times in like two months, I think it was.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you're a professional fighter and you're looking at this, you need to go to a promotion where you're going to fight at least 4 times a year. Do you know what I mean? At least they're going to give you fights rather than, we'll see you next October. You know what I mean?
And like, they're paying him more than he'd be getting paid if he got signed to the UFC.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I don't know the exact figures, but like, let's say you get signed to the UFC now as a debuting fighter, you're looking at like 8 and 8 or 10 and 10. Miles is getting paid more than, like, something like that, you know, some 10-15 grand, something for that fight alone, and that's after losing it, like. So it's like, and then he's got another fight a couple of months later, and then, you know, you have the options of more fights down the line. Miles needs that after a period of activity. Just get me some fights. He's hungry now, and he's like, you could see he was ring rusty the first day against Anthony Pettis, and his performance the next day was far better. You know, he was really unlucky to lose a decision. I think it was a split decision, and a lot of people had it going the other way. So it's like, it's great for him now to just be back in the groove, and I think he has another one coming up now soon with them. So, like
Jeremy Stevens, Anthony Pettis, they've Rory MacDonald, they've got names, like, you know what I mean? They've got serious fucking names in PFL.
A lot of people are jumping ship from the UFC and going over there, like Shane Burgos just did it. And
stuff. I've seen that.
They're just getting, like, the money is fucking better. The UFC and the way they're running it is they're running it as a cost-cutting business now, really, for the UFC. So it'll be great to see if PFL can keep that up now and stay in action like that for the next 5-10 years, putting money in fighters' pockets.
No, because competition is good, and especially when they're paying people, because it's a thankless, hard game, and not everybody is going to be UFC champion. It's the minimal 0.25%. You know what I mean?
Making some nice money.
So if you're making a few bob, doing what you love, and, you know, like, I know one particular bloke, and he fought in the UFC, and he fought a number of times in the UFC, and I remember there a couple of years ago seeing on his Instagram he's fucking power washing driveways, and I was just like, that's fucking wrong, like, from to be a professional so he didn't do anything financially wrong or anything, it's just the shillings are shit.
If you end up playing soccer in the Premier League even for 2-3 years, you ain't going to be power washing driveways.
No. And that's not me being critical of him. I'm not being critical. I'm just like, fuck that shitty pay. You know what I mean? That's the way I'm thinking. You know, I'm not being critical of him anyway. And fair fuck to him. He's fucking getting to the UFC. But, like, Jesus, if you get to the UFC and you have a number of fights, you should never really have to you can. Do you know what I mean? You never have to be hitting the fucking building site.
Yeah.
I heard. What's his name? Joe Duffy. He did a podcast.
He's roofing now, yeah.
Roofing, and I was fucking. Even though he doesn't look at MMA, he doesn't grapple, he doesn't this, and I'm just like, fair fucking. He was a bleeding savage, and I'm
brilliant
like,
fighter.
that's just fucking wrong. That's wrong.
He must have had 10 UFC fights. Like.
Yeah, our guys are going to UFC and they're going back like doing what I'm doing, considering they've been fucking stars and headlining gigs and the whole lot. You know what I mean?
You make it to that level, you should be making bank. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Enough to keep you in a comfortable.
Because the promotion is,
yeah.
You know what I mean? The promotion is
wankers.
You know, the promotion is, you know, they're making fucking money hand over fist. You know,
big time. Yeah.
No,
it's crazy.
It is. It's a mad one. But I can't remember whose podcast was it. The Old Triangle. The lads.
Yeah.
The Old Triangle. I like that podcast. Great podcast. We're kind of lucky as well with MMA podcasts. MMA in depth. Dave is good as well at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying them all.
Yeah, there's some really good, like the severe lads with the Old Triangle there.
Yes.
They're putting a good shine on the domestic scene, which is great.
No, 100%.
It's great to cover the UFC and all of that, but it's nice to have. And like Dave, they're out there just trying to build a name for the fighters that are on the scene right now. So it's really cool to see, you know. And
the Energize show as well. I was listening to Sean O'Bannon's podcast before I met you. They're fucking savage as well. But I really, even the other severe. See, like big UFC, the American guys, I don't really listen to that.
Yeah, I'm the same, yeah.
I'll listen to a podcast with someone like Lewis Bourne or Max or Sean O'Bannon. Yeah. People I know.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Or know of, that they fight. That's just me. I'm more grassroots than... Now, I do like looking at UFC and stuff, but I won't sit down and listen to a podcast.
There's so much of it on lately as well. It's kind of saturated at the moment, like the market. Like there's the UFC card every weekend, and then you look at the cards, and a lot of them are like coming from the Dana White Contender Series, and you've no connection to those fighters. You don't know anything about them. Whereas, you know, we're looking at like domestic shows here, or even people going onto the PFL like night at the weekend, and it's like, right now I'm interested in this because I've seen the rise of this fighter and I've seen the journey they've been on. So you have more connection to them than you do to some guy, some wrestler coming through the Dana White Contender Series. You know, you have more interest in looking at them. So it's good to see that they're getting that bit of exposure. And the guys out there, it's a thankless task. They ain't earning money for all of these podcasts, really. You know what I mean? It's like they're doing it for the love of the game. Same as the people that I'm working with on the shows, like the medics and stuff. Like obviously everyone's getting paid, but like, they're not making fucking mint off it. You know what I mean?
No, they're there for
the coach teams and the commentators and the refs and the judges. Everyone is there, and we're all there. It's a long evening working those shows. We'll be exhausted after it, but it's the love of the game. You know what I mean? And it's to provide a platform for those fighters. Then, like Shauna goes off, then the big promotions are all chasing her. They can look at like good quality footage of a good professionally run show where she's after dominating a couple of opponents under those lights in front of a big crowd. You know, and that's because there are people on the scene here just put in serious amounts of work to put those shows on. Yes. And it's brilliant to see it actually paying off then for fighters further down the line, you know.
No, 100%.
Long may it fucking continue.
Yeah, no, 100%. And come here, and looking at how Deco's getting better all the time with the shows, and Decky McAleenan up in your, like, the shows are getting better and better, and I imagine because these people competed or athletes, they're like looking at each other's shows as well and going, how can we make this better the next time? Absolutely. But I was really impressed with yours, Decky shows, how he runs them, how he has the fighters are first and foremost, you know what I mean?
And the matchmaking's brilliant. Like,
savage.
Some of the fights have been unbelievable up there, you know?
Savage.
Really and like them and Cage Legacy, they were the first two promotions I contacted when I decided, look, I wouldn't mind doing a bit of this commentating. I messaged them and I just said, put me in there, and they went, no problem, you're in. No questions asked, here you go.
And the last apart from my son's fights obviously, but the last fight I really enjoyed on your was Aaron McDonald and Lewis Bourne.
Oh yeah.
That was a fucking belter. Back and forth, like
serious,
that was a fucking belter, man. That was a belter. Bit of wrestling on both sides, striking, lighting each other up.
Yeah, there's some cracking fights on that show as well. Like, and then we had Dennis Frimpong and Simon on the last one. That was a whopper. And
the young fella out of
Aaron Henry, the flyweights one.
The young fella out of Team KF.
Oh yes, Dom Narcos.
Fucking Jumpler's fighting every 2 weeks.
He's 18 and he's like fighting every couple of weeks, and he's butchering opponents as well. You know, Elvis Luco as well. There's been some cracking prospects coming through lately, so I'm really excited to see where all of that goes. You know.
Yeah, no.
Let's see where if it all starts paying off now further down the line. 5 years, we might have a rake of fighters in the UFC again. You know,
Savage.
It's fairly likely.
Be good. Anyway, Paul, we're going to wrap this bad boy up.
Sound
Nice one.
Appreciate it, my man.
Give Paul a follow on Instagram, BJJ Browner.
Yeah.
Please share this podcast, like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Yep.
Take it easy.